Donti Narasimha Reddy Garu. Professor Donti Narasimha Reddy Garu is a continuous source of knowledge for all our group who are working under different titles like CGR, Earth Center, Grace, whatever the forum we are working, is our source of knowledge and source of inspiration. He is a professor and is from Central University. He did his master's and he did his PhD from Osmania University. Now, today, he is a master on many subjects concerning with the people like energy, power, pesticides, seeds, agrarian and food production, food supply chain, and handlooms and whatnot. Many subjects. He is expert today, and he is a policy commentator and policy expert for the government by private policies also. He is doing for last 8 days what happening in the Glasgow every day. He is doing dissection of 2 hours every day, happenings every day. This will continue till the 13th of this month. Now I request Donti Narasimha Reddy Garu, by taking the fresh incidences of Glasgow COP26 in hand, let him speak, share his views with the audience today connected with us. Narasimha Reddy Garu, it is for you.
Thank you, Dilip Reddy Garu. I hope people, listeners are not tired already, because I think the final speaker. Please allow me to share the PowerPoint so that I know some of the issues are easily understood. So, of course, all the speakers have been very forthright, but I think the message is clear. Indian media needs to learn a lot about climate change, and their coverage is very abysmal. I think very low and very under quality, whatever is being done. I'll just go through some of the slides and then make my points. Some of these questions have been asked, not only I'm asking, but also it was asked internationally. Whether an average journalist actually understands climate change. Now, this is not rocket science, of course, no. But then I feel in India, we are, increasingly more number of rocket sciences are appearing for a journalist rather than reducing the rocket sciences. So climate change is the latest which is joining that. So in between, these journalists, because they think they can't understand these rocket sciences, they create rocket scientists, and that's a problem. So the core problem is, I think, increasingly average journalists, leave alone climate change. Many of the issues which are mentioned by the my predecessor speakers, I don't think they look into that, including the simplest sanitary workers issue in Hyderabad, which Haku Initiative is now pioneering. Of course, the role of media, I think all of us understand, but again, what about of course, when we say media, I think it's not a monolith. We need to understand how defragmented it is and how varied it is, and it has its own tentacles, it has its own life of its own, various subcomponents of this media. So here, I think when we say media has a role of these different components, subcomponents, print media, electronic media, are all these media components participating in this education? Print media for long, it has been trained, it has become habituated, but I don't see the same thing happening with other kinds of media. Now, some of the articles, of course, now climate change we can see only in articles, not in the news. So some journalists writing article or some academic writing article. So most of this, data looks more intimidating rather than informative. So I beg to differ with Sudhakar Reddy when he says, where is the data? Yeah, climate emergency, I think as Nilima clearly said, it is understood by the common people. So we don't need data to make them understand. So the link between the problem and the crisis, I think that's increasingly becoming obvious. We don't need to do the scientific. IPCC, of course, it might validate our concerns, but I think increasingly we are seeing that connect not only us, average, small, uneducated, or what we see as an unscientific person is also able to understand. But the problem is why media is not looking at it. That's a problem. And then why media is not going far enough. I think those questions have been raised previously as well. So here, I think the question again and again comes because when you see climate change, the whole science as a rocket science or a technical subject, do we need to retain the objectivity or do we need to act as activists? So this role, I think there is some confusion even among the established journalists, whether they want to retain their objectivity as a journalist and report on the news or become activists and report as such. I think those genuine dichotomies are also there. I think that we need to acknowledge. Now, I think just to inform you, unlike Indian, the Guardian, I think it is seen as a pioneering media house in climate change. And in fact, they have issued a style guide, which they have improved it in 2019. So they stopped using climate change, but they are using words like climate emergency. So they see this is a passive word, climate change. What does it mean? It does not mean anything. So they're using climate emergencies, they're using climate crisis. So they have changed that nomenclature so that the reader understands the issue clearly. Because every time you say climate change, I think you need to explain what you are trying to say. So, as the editor-in-chief said, they want to be scientifically precise. Now, can a journalist be scientifically precise? Should it be? I think that's a question we need to ask ourselves because our readership, our kind of population is something different. So I think this is another question which we need to delve into detail in the discussion. Now, BBC also is also seen as a pioneer on climate change news. So they also issued an internal guidance. This is actually, they say, a crib note where I thought very important points have been made. They said editorial policy, position, and advice on the topic. I think that's very key. That I wonder any of our Indian media has looked into. And the latest scientific understanding on climate change. Now it's easy, if you look at 10, 15 years back, I know even Umar Sudhir, when we were working on different subjects, the Sudhakar Reddy raised that issue of data or expert opinion. But now, you get anything on the internet in your fist. So you can extrapolate, you can, of course, interpret all those things. But latest scientific understanding is becoming available. In fact, in COP26, we have seen at least half a dozen reports launched which explain more than what IPCC has mentioned. So Global Carbon Budget 2021, Adaptation Gap Report by UNEP. I think these are the reports which give us more information on what is happening, including Oxfam report, latest, 2 days back, they released a report. They said, who is the culprit, climate culprit, and they looked at data and they said the richest 1%, are facilitating 50% of carbon emissions. So that kind of information, I think, will help us in understanding what is happening, even in issues which are local, like paddy or podu, all those issues which are mentioned earlier. Relevant policy action in the UK and internationally. I think this is again straight linkage which should have been done. So, I go back to what Narendra Modi has declared at COP26. He said Panchamrit. So five commitments he made in COP26. And surprisingly, no one has related to this Panchamrit to any policy in India. I have not seen any, but there is a praise. Even on Twitter, I've seen some so-called journalists who are also critical of the government, but still they are saying, oh, more than America, we have done a very good commitment. So they are not linked it with the policy in India, and straight away they did this comparative political analysis, and they said, oh, India is better than China, India is better than Russia, India is better than US. But even now, at least I think there is space for why this Panchamrit and under what circumstances this Panchamrit has come, and which policy is includes these commitments. I think that question has not been raised. Of course, research projects and actions in business and society, even in energy sector, including renewable energy, where India is investing a lot in the last 5-10 years. Even today, we don't find that research. I can authentically say because we have been working on electricity regulation for the past 25 years. So anyway, there are other issues, deeper understanding is required. So I think this script page developed by BBC for their own staff, I think these kind of initiatives are required in Indian media as well. Someone said, even if the journalist, does a lot of work, they do research or they might have gathered information, and when it goes to the desk should also understand this. And we need to see how many Indian media houses have established scientific desks, science desks. I don't see, because increasingly, if you see in the last 15 years, we are staring at health issues. All of them are related to some science or other. So we need science desks. We need science people sitting there and editing or judging the stories coming from the journalists on the field. But obviously, even if the journalist is a science journalist, but the desk in charge usually is non-science, non-scientifically oriented person. So I think that's a very pathetic situation. Now, if you look at past, September 2018, UN has organized a Sustainable Development Goal Media Compact. So they try to bring media in order to work more and more on sustainable development goals. So, this 85 is a 2018 figure, but right now it has gone past, I think almost to 200 plus media organizations are there, which is reflected in the data below. So there are 25 outlets from Europe, 20 from America, 31 from Africa, 10 from Middle East. We think Middle East is always an ancient society with all those, terror or oil, everything. But even from Middle East, we see 10 media houses as part of SDGs. And from Asia, there are 147, which includes 129, out of 147, 129 are from Japan and 0 from India. This big country with so many media houses, not one media organization is part of the United Nations SDG Media Compact. which itself is a big commentary on what our media is and what it is looking at. Now, science, I think it was mentioned, science is increasingly coming into our lives through the business. So we have, in recent years, we are seeing individual science journalists. So I can see one or two names are also familiar for me because they do a lot of scientific research. I just can't. So there is one name because why I'm saying this is during Corona time. Corona reporting, as Uma mentioned, in terms of taking safety steps, in terms of social distancing, in terms of taking the messages which the government wanted to take, I think media played a role. But then how much role they are playing in the treatment, how much role they are playing in the entire economics behind corona pandemic and of course the vaccines. So I think corona reporting shows that because it is more of science and more of health and more of medical research. In fact, internationally, there is a lot of cooperation, but in India, we don't see that scientists coming forward or medical doctors who are linked with that specific discipline, they are coming forward and educating the people. So here, I think the big question which I raised earlier also, whether journalists are applying the basic principles. The basic principle of journalism is whenever you write a story, you try to get opposite voices, or you try to appear neutral in your writing. So that means you collect opinions from all the players related to that story. But this I did not find in Corona. This I did not find in earlier health pandemics. So this is Corona is not the only pandemic. Every year tribals are dying because of malaria, dengue, and many other pandemics. But that's not reported simply because media is not interested. So applying journalism principles, leave alone the role which they need to go beyond, is also becoming a problem. And that's where when Rakesh says mid-information, I think what I see is as a presumption. There are a lot of presumptions, like what caused October floods in Hyderabad? Oh, it could be clear, because some Palle Cheruvu, band has, breached and then the water entered the colonies. But when you look at the past 40, 50 years of data, there is no record which says so much rainfall has come to Hyderabad in that period. So these linkages are not being done, and somewhere they are lost because of the deadlines, because of the shortage of time, and many other difficulties average journalist faces every day. So, but increasingly the problems are related to the science, the business of science, and that science which is pushing people into unhealthy conditions. So like pesticides, I keep mentioning that pesticide poisoning is a big issue, big beyond farmer suicides. But then the only data comes from is the National Crime Records Bureau. And whenever we give that data, media does not pick up. But then, if a pesticide company owner like Raju Shroff organizes a press conference in Mumbai, and he says alcoholism is a cause of pesticide poisoning, deaths rather than pesticide poisoning, all the business newspapers, put that in the headlines. But when we did a press conference later, it was not even reported. So this kind of structure, which I think Rakesh mentioned as a hierarchy of denial. Now, hierarchy of denial by industry, individuals or small organizations is fine. But when you have a mafia, when you have a network, when you have a corporate, lobby behind that, I think the role of journalism comes to the fore. So that's where I want journalists to understand the politics behind the science. Now, I think this is where the Reuters, there is this tweet. There is a tweet from Reuters Institute. You can see they said climate change has always felt like a topic. As journalists, we did not understand that it is systemic. So this is become systemic is what is not understood. So, and it needs to be part of every section. So it's not about Pudu or paddy. It's not about, it is not just about rainfall. It is also about desertification. It is also about insect apocalypse. It is also about pesticide poisoning. It is also about anemia, which is spreading across India in rural areas. It is also about hunger, which is again spreading all over India. So I think this linkages as part of a system is not understood. Last time there was this UN Food System Summit in which was organized by the UN. We questioned that, they said food systems. Now, what is this food system? We organized our own workshops, parallel workshops, but none of the media picked up. But when it becomes a paddy issue there, they readily come and ask, sir, what is it about paddy? I said, this is a system. Why are you not understanding that? Even today, they want a quote of, criticism, political line, but they don't look at the analysis which we try to give behind each of these problems. So I don't know. So ultimately, only that political line comes to the fore, but not the analysis. So when we want to educate the people, I think media sometimes does not play the role which we expect it to be. Now, this is again a study done by Brookings Institution. They studied Paris Agreement, Paris Summit, COP Summit, and then they analyzed the newspaper coverage, in North countries. Sorry, this is SDG. Next, that's about Paris. So this is on SDGs and MDGs, Sustainable Development Goals and Millennium Development Goals. So you can see the Guardian covered Millennium Development Goals. This is between almost 2002 to 2016. So it's a broad period of analysis they have done. And you can see the coverage in Guardian was very good. And Financial Times, Financial Times has peaked in 2004-5, but they reduced. But here the difference is Guardian continued with Sustainable Development Goals, but Financial Times did not maintain the same level on SDGs. And New York Times, again, it was peaked in 2005, but added a little on SDGs. In Times of India, you can see very good coverage on SDGs in 2016. The Star in South Africa, on par, if you compare, it is very less. But in Nigeria, that's again, Nigeria, Vanguard is the media house, and they covered both MDG, SDGs together. So I think you can see the surprises. So it only indicates that even journalists are not intimidated by this subject, as a rocket science. So even SDGs, some people say it's all rocket science. But when converting that into news, I think that becomes very easy until you understand the system behind it. Now this is a study on Paris Summit. So the same Brookings Institute did that study, and that was in 2015. So they looked at 4 highest circulation newsprint sources in US, and over a 2-week period, same as what is happening with COP26. So you can see that there were totally 423 articles, and New York Times peaked with 249. That's the highest, followed by Los Angeles Times 106, and USA Today 37, Wall Street Journal 32. But the comment from them, the study was, all that coverage was not instructive. So that means the key issues in the negotiations were scarcely mentioned, and readers gained only a partial understanding. So even though the coverage is good, in terms of making them aware or learn from that, I think it looks very low, which is happening now with COP26. As I mentioned, Panchamrit is okay, on a comparative basis, is a big announcement for India. But then there's no synthesizing, or there is no dissection of that commitment within India. But on comparative basis, if you look at the speech by Morrison from Australia, he is ridiculed even today on social media for whatever he said and did not say. And Boris Johnson, as the Prime Minister of Britain, he was also pointed out for making a speech here about conservation and also about taking concrete climate action. And next minute he was taking a jet plane to London and meeting a lobbyist who is part of the climate denying oil production group. So this kind of reportage, I think, educates the person on how things are going. But, we miss that. That's the problem I'm trying to say. Indian delegation, I looked at Indian delegation there, and which came out only when UNFCCC has released data after 3 days. Now with this UNFCCC delegation from India shows that at least 4 of them are photographers, 5 of them are helping staff. Actual negotiators within that, I think we don't know who are they. And others are from Ministry of External Affairs, working as consuls in consulates across Europe. So when they are 134, it's not a small group, but there is zero news being written about our delegation. Who are they? What are they doing at a COP26? And what is the kind of negotiations which are happening? People were happy tweeting, supporting Panchamrit decision by Modi. But then no one is looking into what is our delegation, what position they are taking. In agriculture, I can see draft text which came yesterday, which mentions India very significantly. But then when you look at the draft text, they are not discussing anything related to Indian farmers, like what we are seeing at paddy or wheat or 3 formulas. So there are many issues which we are struggling on a daily basis. So we don't know what's the position taken by Indian government on agriculture and various other issues, including carbon, coal, elimination. So everyone is now committing themselves or pushing themselves, at least on paper. By 2030, there will be no coal. But India has not come out categorically on that. So we are not questioning that. Leave alone questioning. There is no coverage of such news. I think that's a wonder which we are saying. So I feel media networks, they need to foster solidarity with an information audience. Now each media network has its own information audience, but are they trying to build any solidarity by covering the issues? They are doing, but I feel because they are captured by the business houses. So they are doing it in a negative way rather than positive. So that is a very huge concern. Of course, now faster and easily accessible information is there, but that's not flowing down naturally. You know, our media, electronic media covers volcanic eruption in Spain, but they don't show a fire accident which is equally disastrous in our neighborhood. So I think such kind of asymmetry in information is also problematic. Now I have only two more slides. Sorry. So this is I thought these conceptual models. This was I thought very good. This is proposed by Eitan Gilboa in 2001, not now. So they said public diplomacy. Even this is about role of media as an instrument. So she says state and non-state actors use the media and other channels of communication to influence public opinion in foreign societies. Now, not in their own society, but in foreign societies. How much of our realization is there on that? So when you look at ANI feed or PTI feed or, and all of this depend on Reuters or other news agencies, what kind of feed they are giving and how much they are relevant to our concerns. I think that that kind of analysis again is missing. Media diplomacy. So officials use the media to communicate with actors and to promote conflict resolution. Now this conflict resolution, I think what all we have been discussing, my previous speakers highlighted number of issues. There are all conflicts, conflict between different stakeholders. But this conflict resolution is not emerging out of this communication by the media. So then the problem, is it the content of that communication, or is it the role being played by media, or the distrust which has already set in over the media? So increasingly, I think media is seen as one of the players rather than a referee or umpire sitting over these conflicts. Media broker diplomacy. So in such a situation, will journalists become a role of diplomats? So that means that, they have to have a subject knowledge, they have to gain the trust, all those things have to happen. But like international negotiation, not only this, we see on pesticides, there is a joint management conference which is starting, I think, in another 2 days. There I find not this year, for the past 20 years, we don't see any Indian journalists there. So we have to depend on other journalists to, get out the viewpoint which we are trying to. On the other hand, corporate companies, they are there with their big resources, they are able to push whatever they want to do through the media. So I think this, so that's why I think we need to again and again look at public diplomacy, media diplomacy, and media broker diplomacy as a conceptual models. And is it possible for journalist schools or journalism associations, journalist associations to see these kind of roles in international negotiations? Because international negotiations is no longer something happening somewhere. It affects directly us. We are seen in WTO, World Trade Organization, right from 95, we have been monitoring. Indian media, again and again, they fail to inform us on what is happening against our interests at international level. So I think we need to emphasize on this kind of role for media as well. Now, finally, I thought at COP26, I've been monitoring, as Dilip Reddy said, everyday basis. I've been reviewing it. In fact, I've been sharing a written document but I have not seen them surfacing in any print media or in any media. That's fine because, but the person who is reading it, are they digesting it? Are they understanding it? Is something different. So basically, I feel it's not just about a number of articles. It's not articles, but the quality is very, very crucial. So some of the questions is which average common person should can understand is what is at stake in Paris and Glasgow. Paris, even today, we don't have an analysis of what was at stake at Paris after 6 years and Glasgow and what is being accomplished. Right now, I think it's a serious issue because when people are saying it is now or never, and disasters, the period between disasters is reducing. Like Kerala, you are seeing, repeatedly. They have not seen such floods in the so frequently, and Chennai, I think, is going to see them again. So with disaster, the gap, time gap between disasters is reducing. The crisis is coming pretty fast. So I think it becomes important what is being accomplished. And that's a concern of the thousands of protesters there in Glasgow. And of course, they are only white, they are not brown, and most of them are from global north. But that's fine because of Corona, because of various issues. I think many of the people could not go there. There were barriers to entry. In fact, that was again a major concern. There was exclusionary tactics, and probably Indian journalists were not there because of that as well. Like vaccination parameters, they wanted only Covishield vaccination, and they delayed visas. And in fact, the biggest thing is the venue is small and the number of registrations are very high. So I think these are the issues which are there. So Indian journalists are not there. I think that's clear. Maybe Jayanta Ghosalji, he can help us and understand how many are there. He was there and what kind of role they are playing. But my concern increasingly is about our negotiators and what they are negotiating, why we can't learn about their negotiation positions, why can't they be interviewed, why can't they give their opinion. I think all these are very serious issues because ultimately on 12th November, the final document is going to be approved by the, again, world leaders. So I think the role of media is not fulfilled completely, to be fair. And Indian media, I think, is nowhere involved in COP26, even though we are directly affected. Unlike 2015, we are directly affected. And people are not linking up what is happening here with the whatever decisions are being made at Glasgow. So I'll stop here. Sorry for taking longer time. Thank you.
Thank you, Narasimha Reddy garu, for your a little lengthy, but touching upon many subjects and raising certain crucial issues. And your voice is the bigger voice amongst the all today speakers with a critical point of view towards to media, more meticulous criticism by taking inferences and examples and questioning that right from the basic principles of journalism has been violated, how without accommodating cross versions for an issue. From there to many lapses and missing focus because of various factors. Some of the conceptual issues, some of the factual issues, some of the inefficiency issues, and certain inadequacy issues. Many contributing factors are making media to miss its focus towards to which they're supposed to do in order to fulfill its fundamental duties of informing, educating, and motivating the people. And moreover, you made a serious observation that rather than in the content rather than information. Intimidation is going into the public domain, which is dangerous. And the sole purpose of the media will be defeated with that. And the media has to take a role. I'm extending heartfelt thanks to Narasimha Reddy Garu and for all the speakers, especially barring Narasimha Reddy Garu, all other speakers just give and take policy of 3-4 minutes into one into other, but otherwise they strictly stipulated to their time schedules and completed this session in time. And I'm being the moderator, I would like to conclude without taking much of your time as well as the audience time, that beautiful deliberations took place today with a great solid message by our chief guest, Jayanta ji. Then Jayanta Ghoshal ji rightly said that media focus how shifting and how prioritizations are not adequate to the need of the people. And then Professor Purushottam Reddy Garu, who said that as well as in the policy for facing challenges of the climate crisis, and at the same time to take the cause of the people, there must be a paradigm shift he desired. And in the similarly, many suggestions, training aspects and avoiding fake news, dissemination of information, and a methodology to adapt the new things to sink such issues into the public. And as Uma ji rightly said, that fighting simultaneously at different levels with different aspects, with a different focus, unless that is there, the media cannot play its due role. There are many issues I noted down, and anyhow, with the help of great backbone of our entire deliberations for last 10 days, Sai Bhaskar Garu and his team is recording everything, and we will separately prepare each panel member's speech separately, and we will derive more points out of it, and we will definitely prepare a beautiful document for the what perceptional and practitioner changes media has to inculcate to meet the challenges like climate crisis and many things. Narsana wants to raise a thing, but before that, Anna?
Yeah, one aspect I forgot.
Please.
I thought this is important because recently I was in a neighboring state, one town. I'm not naming it because not to,
okay.
So that
it's okay.
So in this town, we went there and we had a workshop on a very important public health issue, which concerns the entire town. So we did a workshop and we gave a press release. There was media, they recorded it, and next day nothing came out, either in the print or also in the electronic media.
Yeah.
So when they were asked why, they said whatever you said is against the local political bigwig. So we will not cover. I said this is the first time I'm hearing in the last 35 years of my career as because media, when we did not name that person, it was about public policy. But then media is also going to such negative interpretations, and probably even I see media is divided by color. So there are blue color, pink, red, all those media. But all these colorful medias together, they said we will not carry this. So that's a surprise for me. So that is also indication of the levels where media is getting control, especially after Corona.
That is a great observation, Professor Narasimha Reddy Garu. If one section of media is doing like that, it is of course we can tolerable to some extent, but entire media becoming ring and singing to the tunes of political system is not advisable, and it will be questioned. I hope that in the future, like previously there was a culture of clubs like Rotary clubs, Lions clubs. I hope that in the future, as long as the commodity is a consumable commodity, if media becomes, and even among those consumers, they will come the listeners club, readers club, viewers club, and the netizens clubs will emerge. and they will stipulate and demand what sort of content has to come and how content has been manipulated and thoroughly misinformation campaign strategically happening against the interest of common people. Such all things I hope that will come in the near future. But this is, I don't think out of context that I would like to remember that Thomas Jefferson said one thing, that illiteracy is a pathetic situation. Literature will bring light into the lives of the people. But becoming illiterate and reading only newspaper and depending on only news content is no way brighter than illiteracy. If that perception we have to disprove with the evidence and empirical evidences, we have to disprove that statement that media is there for serving and subserving the purpose and cause of the people and upliftment of the society. That media has to do. I am being the part and parcel of the media for last 30 plus years. I feel sometimes very, very shameful and shy for those observations, but hope that with lot of simple measures like many speakers of the day, with a positive connotation, they said certain suggestions how media can change their perception, attitude, priorities, and focus. With those things, I hope that once again, I'm extending heartfelt thanks to all today's eminent speakers and I was very much impressed with their focus of their given time by bringing the core issues to the tune and their angle and angularity and the dimension they perfectly brought into. Sai Bhaskar, are there any specific and lined questions to get answers from our panelists?